the Kath Murdoch episode of Reinvent the Classroom. Are you excited, Rob?
I'm hugely excited, and I'm a great fan of Kath, so I can't wait.
You checked out HyperX microphones on?
It is totally on and ready to go. I sound silky smooth.
Silky smooth. Baby, you always sound silky smooth. Look, do you know what? Today we're going to be talking to Kath. We're obviously going to be discussing inquiry learning. She is probably not only the most renowned expert in Australia for inquiry learning, you know what? Safe bet, probably one of the most renowned inquiry learning experts in the world.
Yeah,
so
that's no joke.
Really big score for us to be able to talk to her on the Reinvent the Classroom podcast today. Clearly, we're going to talk about inquiry learning. We're going to actually open up with some questions about the controversy and the challenge and the debate and the balance between inquiry and explicit. We might even have some fun and talk about some karaoke and some singing and even some dinosaurs, Paleolithic questions as well. I can't wait.
Let's do it.
Rob, we've got our next episode of the Reinvent the Classroom
I'm very excited
podcast.
for this one.
Very excited for this one. I wonder, have you had any inquiring thoughts about how this podcast is going to roll out?
Many inquiring thoughts, absolutely.
Because you know who we are going to have a little bit of inquiry
Absolutely
with
do.
now? Oh, would you like to do the introduction?
Kath Murdoch.
Kath, g'day. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Brett.
Look, straight into it. We're going to talk to you now. I may bring up karaoke. I know you're a lover of a bit of the song, but you are well renowned, probably one of the most renowned educators in Australia. I'm sure you've heard that. I don't know anyone inside Australia and much of the people outside of Australia who know of your work, who reference your work, who are influenced by your work. That's got to be daunting, exciting. Like, how does that feel? Like, you are known globally as a leader in education.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think it just means that I've been doing it for a long time, Brett. I think it's just I've been around for a while, and after you've been around for a while, maybe you just become better known. But look, having said that, I shouldn't be flippant, because it is a real privilege to have a voice in the field, and I'm grateful for it, and really, really lucky to be doing a job that I still love with so much passion. I think, it's the best job in the world, isn't it? Teaching, just fantastic.
It is a pretty awesome job, and you gave a very Australian answer. One of the things, particularly as I've started to get to speak in America and all that sort of stuff, they are sometimes so good at championing and culturally championing their ideas and their thoughts, and they've got that support group around them. But in Australia, we do have that tall poppy syndrome thing. We don't like to blow our own trumpet, but I'm here right now. I want to blow the trumpet for you, because if you've heard of inquiry-based learning, if you would have come across Kath's work, she is a authentic, genuine leader in the field, and I guess that is your passion, right? Inquiry learning.
It is, yep. It definitely
For the uninitiated, do you want to give us a bit of, for the uninitiated, give us a little bit of a synopsis of what is inquiry learning? Why is it important?
Okay, well, whenever I get asked that question, I always respond by saying that trying to define inquiry quickly is not unlike trying to put an elephant into a matchbox, or should I say perhaps a Tyrannosaurus Rex into a matchbox,
or a mammoth.
Or a mammoth, of course. It is both simple and complex at the same time. In its simplest form, we could say that inquiry-based learning is where the learner is really positioned as an investigator, and that they are supported to investigate a question, a problem, an issue, a challenge, and to really do that kind of heavy lifting of finding out and making meaning themselves, rather than have a kind of predetermined package of information, poured into their heads, so to speak. That's the simple version. The more complex version involves, I would just quickly say, that it is a stance. It's a way of being as an educator. A kind of an approach that you bring to your day, to how you are as a teacher. It's a pedagogy, so it's a way of teaching that has a particular repertoire of techniques and strategies. And it's also a way of designing for learning. So we have what we call a cycle of inquiry that we use to design learning experiences. So that's the short and the long version.
You've written 15 books, I think. You're a prolific author. And I wonder if this was a simple topic, it might have been 1 or 2 books. But you've written more than that on inquiry alone. I wonder, is that because there are misconceptions about it that need to be drawn out, and that perhaps there are elements of schools and education that are very resistant to inquiry learning? What might some of those resistances and misconceptions be?
Yeah, look, certainly, I think all areas of education, I mean, that's a huge beast, isn't it? And I think everyone who champions a particular approach or philosophy would say that there are misconceptions people hold about their field, and inquiry learning is no different. I'd say that direct instruction enthusiasts would also say that there are misconceptions about what they talk about too. But certainly there are persistent myths about inquiry that just don't seem to go away. I think there are sometimes some political reasons for why they don't go away. But perhaps one of the most common myth is that when you use an inquiry-based approach, you simply say to children, "Oh, what would you like to find out about? Cool. What are your questions? Great. Okay, off you go and find out." And that you kind of, abdicate your responsibility, that you don't do any active teaching, that you're this kind of touchy-feely guide on the side that doesn't really make anything explicit. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the great inquiry teachers that I see at work are amongst the most explicit and the most present as their learners are engaged in learning. They are coaching really strategically to support the learner to do more of the figuring out for themselves more of the time. And the educator's role is absolutely critical. So that, I guess, is a misconception that we just have to keep, making sure we address.
Yeah, look, I as I guess someone who gets to be on the sideline and see these arguments unfold, particularly obviously on social media, gets quite vehement sometimes. I think there's a false argument. I don't actually believe there is the controversy that people make out. I don't think teaching is binary. I don't think we choose explicit or inquiry, that they are not exclusive elements. And I think people have a manufactured argument to say it's one or the other. It's not a binary discussion. Inquiry are skills that teachers can add to their repertoire and meet the children, their pedagogical need, like where they are at. I loved when you mentioned a little bit before, even though it's hard to sum up what inquiry is in a quick snapshot, you talked about the changing that passive nature of learning. So rather than passively getting information or receiving information or being gifted information, it's an active role in which the students are guided, are supported, are explicitly taught, but have those opportunities then to dive in deeper and own their own learning.
That's it. You got it. And the idea of it being a false dichotomy, we've talked about this false dichotomy literally for decades, Brett. So it's just, I think, humans, perhaps we like things simple. We quite like a kind of, it's either this or it's that. Much simpler to get our heads around something that is binary, I think, than something that is complex and nuanced. So I think that's one of the reasons that false dichotomy persists. But I think the reality is most teachers are much more pragmatic than that and accept that we have a repertoire. I think we have to certainly make a call and say, well, I still have these underpinning principles. I can't just have a little bit of everything and not have any kind of firm stance about what I believe about how learners best learn and what it means to be a teacher. So my stance is very much inquiry oriented, but that doesn't mean that I don't have some direct or didactic teaching in my repertoire. I need to be able to do that in as skilled a way as I do the kind of more coaching and guided model, which would be the majority of my teaching. But certainly, you know, we've got that I often think about the direct teaching bit as kind of the chili in the dish, that you don't want to overdo it, but it can really enhance the work when you use it.
I do love a good metaphor.
Spicy.
Look, spicy.
So do I.
Look.
Yeah.
This whole podcast, this whole discussion is all about reinventing the classroom, looking at doing things differently. I know I've used inquiry-based learning. I have very strong memories of one of the most incredible space experiences where my students came back and I learned more. You get to be the learner as the teacher sometimes as well. I learned about the space elevator and all these incredibly awesome things. I wonder, you must have come across, because we started this, Rob, you gave us straight into the controversy. You gave us the controversial question straight away. But let's talk about the awesomeness of inquiry. What are some of the most like mind-boggling, like just wow things that you've actually been able to see students or teachers or those things that, like, goodness me, without this mode, without this model, not possible. Do you have those standouts?
Oh, of course, almost so many that my brain is struggling to settle on one thing. You know, I feel like there's sort of two extremes when I think about this. On the one hand, those moments that really strike me as so powerful can be the smallest moments in working with 5-year-olds in a play-based environment, where there is an opportunity for the children to take an idea, something that their imagination has brought to them, to working with materials and literally and figuratively constructing something. I remember really vividly, I think this was last year in one of the non-lockdown periods, where I watched a group of 5-year-olds create a cake shop out of loose parts and being incredibly inventive about what they were using to represent the cakes. And this is a long story, so I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but suffice to say, the cake shop morphed over time into not just a deluxe cake shop with a range of amazing cakes on sale, but a sculpture gallery as well. So you could go into their beautiful cake shop and then buy a cake and then move on to the sculpture gallery that they'd created. And they just been given this beautiful open opportunity to design their own learning experience and create out of their imaginations this glorious place that I think should exist in real life, by the way. I want to go to the place where you buy a cake and then go and look at sculptures. But I remember just standing back and watching them collaborate, imagine, problem solve, risk take, persist, at the same time as they were being artists and mathematicians and scientists and linguists, all in this spirit of inquiry. And that was an example of a project that emerged with 5-year-olds in the moment. And I think without the stance that the teachers took in that learning space, the stance of the inquirers. So the educators are inquirers. They're observing, they're listening, and they are trusting and gently nudging forward the learning that is happening, but really honouring what the children do. Without that stance, none of that would have been happening. That's a far cry from, I don't know, the 5-year-old sitting with a cute worksheet or, you know, doing some kind of highly structured, directed activity in that time. So from that to then a grade 6 child that I interviewed last week, actually, who an amazing class in Tasmania at Riverside Primary School. The teacher, Carmel, has engaged the children in personal inquiries in the final term of the year. So each of the children choosing something they wanted to inquire deeply into. And I interviewed several of the children. One child has completed a personal inquiry into artificial intelligence and was telling me about the coding he'd managed to do to get this. I don't even understand it myself, Brett, but to get this AI to answer questions that he was asking it. And what he was talking,
chat.
he was amazing.
It's so cool.
He was amazing. And he's like 11 years old and was telling me not just about what he created, given the opportunity to inquire, but how his inquiry had revealed to him that he was better able to manage disappointment and failure than he had been before. He said there was one point at which he made a mistake and he lost all his coding and he had to start again. And he said, oh, but you know what? I stuck with it and I bounced back and I think I'm a stronger learner for it. So that was another one of those moments that reminded me that when you know how to use this approach well, you're not just building understanding and knowledge in our children, which is what we want. You're also, as my colleague and friend Guy Claxton says, you are also building learning muscle. You are helping them learn to be strong learners. And both my cake shop, sculpture shop 5-year-olds and this amazing 11-year-old, coder were doing just that. And both those moments filled me with joy.
That's a wonderful answer. Can I ask, Kath, based on that, what do you value as an educator?
What do I value? As an educator, the words that come to mind are curiosity and wonder, definitely, agency, collaboration. They would be three of the big things, that are driving values for me. And I guess the fourth one would be connection. So strong connection both to content, to the child, to my colleagues, because that relationship piece is so foundational to this work. It doesn't work without a really strong relational culture.
Do you know what? I think, as you know, I'm very passionate about education technology, and when you talk about those collaborations and connections, I think that's where technology really comes to the forefront, because suddenly for the longest of times, it was antisocial, it was anti-relationship to be locked away on technology, but this huge seismic shift in like what we're doing right now, being able to connect across state, interstate, and beforehand, internationally, to be able to come together, to build those relationships, to establish those connections, to learn from each other. This is that pedagogical shift that technology enables. Like we get to do all those things that you just valued, but we leverage technology to do things that were previously impossible.
Absolutely. And having been teaching for, in a couple of years' time, it'll be 40 years. So I have the experience of being in a completely non-digital environment, and where using an inquiry-based approach meant trotting off to the library, and we still do that, but mainly finding out from books. And if
World
you were
Book
lucky,
Encyclopedia,
you were lucky to get an expert in to come to the class. And now I literally have the world at my fingertips as an educator. So if kids get interested in something, we can find that expert somewhere in the world to beam in to the classroom. And as a teacher, that rich knowledge that I want to make available to the children is right there. And it's not hopping onto Google and reading websites necessarily. It's connecting with real people. So it's a primary data source using digital technologies, which is so amazing. And what that can do to personalize inquiry for kids is also such a game changer.
I'm going to ask you the question that I don't think we get asked often enough, if ever, as adults. Kath Murdoch, you're inner paleontologist. What is your favourite dinosaur?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that question. I totally do have a favourite one at the moment. It may have changed over the years. I am a primary teacher. I did spend many years teaching in the early years. So, it's all about dinosaurs. But my current favorite dinosaur is absolutely the Triceratops. And
Ooh.
do you want to know why?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I want to know why, and I want to know what that tells me about you.
Okay, so the main reason at the moment is I was lucky enough to not that long ago go to Melbourne Museum that currently has an exhibition of this beautiful Triceratops relic called Horridus. I don't know if you know this story, but the Melbourne Museum actually won the bid to get the remains of this dinosaur that I think they found it in somewhere in the States. I can't remember where. It is the most complete fossil of any Triceratops ever. So it's like 266 of the bones were recovered as fossils. And so they've built it in the museum. It has its very own room. And the way that it is, that exhibit is curated gives you such it was the most amazing experience. Talk about awe and wonder and curiosity. So I spent quite a bit of time hanging around Horridus, and I love him.
Do you know what?
He is
As
one
you
hell of a
describe
beast.
that, I love that you didn't describe you like Triceratops because they were cool and they've got the big spikes and all that sort of stuff, or the horns, but you liked it.
Well, there's that.
I mean, yes, they are cool, but what you've described is so much pedagogically what you're all about with the inquiry. What do you love about it? You love this complete skeleton. You love all the information. You love the way that it's housed, the way that it's surrounded. So you love it, but you love the wrapping of information and the wrapping of knowledge that is completely around it.
You bet.
That is so much Kath Murdoch
That's
inquiry
so good.
cycle.
It is. And I was thinking, that the other thing that if you ever get a chance to go to the exhibit, the way that the museum staff have curated it is so inquiry based. So gone are the very didactic, long bits of information around the room telling you a whole lot of stuff. And in its place are lots of things that cultivate your curiosity, that pique it. So, little replicas of parts of the skeleton, and then wonderings about what it might be. And also the way the text is written around the room is more, look, some scientists think this, others think that. What do you think? So it actually positions all the knowledge around paleontology as both certainly accessible and there, but aspects of it that are theorized and contestable and problematic. So in itself, the way that the exhibit is set up absolutely does what you say. It goes to my heart as an inquiry educator. I really recommend it. When you said, what does it say about me? I guess the exhibit says I love inquiry, but I'm going to say something symbolic. I was thinking about those three, are they horns?
I'm going to say horns. I reckon horns.
Yep. Let's go horns. Let's go 3 horns. And I feel like that represents balance. It represents what we talked about before. It represents not one extreme or the other, but some kind of centering of our thinking, which I think is the most healthy attitude to have as an educator. I can be passionate about inquiry without being an extremist. And I want to be able to go to that third place, what Rumi calls the field beyond, where instead of thinking about what's right and what's wrong, we take it that next step and say, where do we meet in the middle? So I think that's why good old Triceratops is close to my heart.
I asked you what your favourite dinosaur is, because we got not only a discussion about dinosaurs, which I love, but we got to talk about your inner mind, your inner thinking, and why it really sums up you and your authenticity and your love of inquiry.
Thank you.
Now you've got to keep a promise for me, though. When I was texting you back and forth, we did get in a discussion about karaoke. You are a lover of karaoke. You love getting the microphone, having a bit of a belt out. True or not?
I have been known, Brett. Yes.
When you and I go karaokeing and we get a little bit of a crew together, Rob, you going to come sing with us?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What are you going to sing? What's Kath Murdoch's go-to karaoke song?
Oh, wow. Well, actually, my favourite is to do a bit of a duet, Brett.
Oh.
So I've been known to take the female role in "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling." So you might want to bone up there.
I get down on my knees for you.
Yeah. Good.
There you
we'll
go.
be fine.
Top Gun, yes. All right, we are doing that. We are going to do. I think I'm a little bit more of a Val Kilmer look, but I'll go Tom Cruise. I'll play Tom Cruise. We've got it. That's set. That's locked in. Rob, how do we want to finish? Do you want to ask Kath something before we wrap up?
Look, I've got 10,000 questions I want to ask you, Kath, but I'll go with the most politically charged possible question I could ask. Very simple, though. Is inquiry spelt with an I or an E?
Yeah, I'm going to go the I. There are some contexts, particularly in the UK, and sometimes the US, where we use the E, but I is the Australian way.
Yes.
Rob?
Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oi. Kath, thank you so much for joining us. I am thrilled beyond all belief to be able to have you on the podcast. I'm sure Rob feels
Absolutely
the same way. And I am now counting the days till we can sing a duet together.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks so much for having me. And it was just great to get to talk about inquiry and dinosaurs. Very cool.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Kath.
Love having you on Reinvent the Classroom. See you later.
Bye.
Wow. Kath Murdoch. Rob, what did you think?
I think she's absolutely fabulous still, but I seriously think the depth of her values around education really inspired me.
I think you're right. That even as she explained that dinosaur, why does she like the Triceratops so much? With the answer not being because it's cool or it's spiky or it's wicked or whatever, but the fact that it encapsulated her whole value of immersive learning, inquiry, knowledge, that holistic approach to every jigsaw puzzle piece fits together and give
awesome.
a complete immersive experience for a child. I love, when she talks about that purposeful learning, not just passive learning, but purposeful. I think that was just magic.
Nice plosives too.
Yeah, plosives. Thank you. I noticed that you're a fan.
Love the alliteration.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm excited. Just selfishly, can't wait to go karaoke singing with Kath Murdoch. I will be live streaming that on my Twitter feed.
Make sure I'm invited.
But before I go singing and do some karaoke, I'm going to make sure that I check out the next episode of Reinvent the Classroom podcast.
How do you find it?
How do you find it? You go to the Reinvent the Classroom website, hp.com.au/RTC. The same place you also find where if you want to partake in a bit of a Reinvent the Classroom with your school and you want to get some information about getting in touch and getting a readiness assessment done, you go to the same website.